Hello, and welcome to the sixth grade World Geography Distance Learning Plan. The title of our unit is Sawubona, I See You, Africa. This is a very important and significant title. Sawubona is a common greeting among the Zulus in South Africa. It means I see you, I value you, and you are important. I'm Mr. Hamilton, and I'm the sixth grade world geography teacher at Hart Middle School. Hart Middle School is a part of the District of Columbia Public Schools. Welcome, and I hope you are taking care of yourself and staying safe in this time of distance learning. For weeks 6 and 7 of the World Geography Distance Learning Plan, we are going to be discussing the continent of Africa and the misconceptions and mistakes that often occur when some people speak of or consider Africa. We will learn about this in order to answer the compelling question, how can we truly see Africa? We are considering this compelling question with Sawubona in mind. We want to see, value, and make Africa important by learning about the continent and its diversity in this unit. You will answer our compelling question by creating a public service announcement or PSA. A PSA is like an advertisement for public information. This PSA will be about some of the misconceptions of Africa and the realities around those misconceptions. The PSA can be an advertisement, a video, or written PSA, which contains support from the sources found in our learning plan. Let's get started. Your week 6 and 7 distance learning plan has 25 pages. Don't worry, it's not as bad as it seems. In order to follow along, pay attention to the page numbers in the bottom right corner of your packet. Let's start off like we always do at the beginning of a unit with our compelling question. How can we truly see Africa? When some people think of Africa, very general ideas come to mind, and those ideas are attributed to the entire continent and serve to generalize any and everybody on the continent. Some of those misconceptions may be that people think it's always hot all over Africa, or that all people in Africa see large wild animals on a regular basis. In fact, there are places where it snows in Africa, and there are large numbers of people who never see large wild animals. As we will learn in our unit, these are very general and inaccurate portrayals. These are the sort of stereotypes about Africa that you will address in your PSA. We will gather information for our PSA by answering our supporting questions first. Why can it be challenging to see Africa? How can maps help us see Africa? And how can physical features help us see Africa? Let's jump into our learning plan so we can see how our supporting questions relate to how we can truly see Africa, our compelling question. Up first is supporting question 1. Why can it be challenging to see Africa? With this supporting question, we will look at 2 sources which address some of the misconceptions that exist about the continent. In source A, we will read an article entitled Africa's Not a Country. This article lays out some of the generalizations people use to describe Africa. It also shows how disproportionately Africa is generalized compared to other continents. After reading this source, you will complete the questions which can be found on page 5. Next up is source B. This can be found on page 6. This source contains first-person accounts regarding the question, do Africans see wildlife? You will read the accounts of each of the people. After you've read their accounts, you will go to page 23 of the distance learning plan. Here, you will document on the graphic organizer 2 to 3 misconceptions mentioned in our first 2 sources. These will be the misconceptions you clear up when you talk about them in your PSA. Now let's look at supporting question 2. How can maps help us see Africa? For this compelling question, you will review different map projections of the world. In those map projections, you will pay attention to how Africa is portrayed. In source C on pages 7 and 8, you will read about the advantages and disadvantages of the different types of map projections. After that, you will look at the maps in source D on pages 9, 10, and 11. These sources show the different map projections of the world. The Mercator projection, the Peters projection, and the Robinson projections. After you read source C and look at the maps in source D, you will complete your graphic organizer task. You will cite the origins, advantages, and disadvantages for each of the maps. Make sure you pay special attention to the part of your graphic organizer that asks you to describe how Africa is shown in each of the map projections. Once you have finished your graphic organizer, you will work on your because, but, so sentence completions. Each of the sentences relates to the Robinson projection of the world map. They all begin with, the Robinson world map projection is most commonly used in schools because, but, and so. Your responsibility here is to complete each of the sentences using information from the sources you just read. Our next sources deal with the actual size of Africa. Source E, how big is Africa? And source F, size and distance of Africa, use the size of other countries and continents to put the size of Africa into context. Source E compares the size of Africa to the entire continent of Europe, as well as China and the United States. In source F, the largest distance between 2 points on each of the continents are listed. For the task, you will use the information from sources E and F in order to write a paragraph documenting your learning, including what you used to think, what you think now that you've learned about these sources, and why it matters in the context of our compelling question. This will be a great place to start gathering information to put into your PSA. Source G will have you look at the topography, the climate, and the population density of Africa. These 3 thematic maps of Africa will help you complete a See, Think, Wonder graphic organizer. You will make observations of each of the maps, draw a conclusion for each, and finally create a question about what you saw on each map. Our third supporting question is, how can physical features help to see Africa? For this supporting question, you will read source H. This source will provide information for several different types of physical features. You will read about the Sahara, the Sahel, the Ethiopian highlands, Southern Africa, the African rainforest, the African Great Lakes, and the Swahili coast. You will read and annotate this text in the method your teacher has taught you. Once you have finished with your reading, take this time to complete the reality portion of your PSA outline. After you have finished the first 2 columns with misconceptions and the realities, you can begin to sketch out how you will address these in your PSA. Now it's time to show what you know. It's time to write our PSA. The amazing thing about our performance task for this unit is you can be completely creative with it. You can do a commercial for a TV or radio. You can do an advertisement like one that you would see on the bus or train, or even in one of the billboards at the metro station, or you can just simply write out your PSA. Remember to pay attention to the rubric on pages 24 and 25. Answering the question in these categories after you write and making edits based on the rubric will help make sure your PSA is the best you can make it. If you have any questions, feel free to reach out to your teachers. Thank you for your hard work, and know that both your teacher and I appreciate your effort.